Like, I'm scared. Like, when am I gonna have kids? I don't have a fucking car yet. Like...
Imagine this. You're a vibrant young woman full of dreams stepping into the world of online dating with hope and excitement. You match with an intriguing older man, and everything seems perfect until it's not. This is the story of Lauren Smithfields, a 23-year-old who accepted a Bumble date with a man she barely knew. Just hours later, her life was tragically cut short, leaving her family devastated and the community in shock. How did a night of potential romance turn into a nightmare? And why did it take so long for anyone to care? Before we dive into this gripping story, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more true crime cases and updates. Your support helps us continue uncovering the truth. What we uncover today will challenge everything you think you know about safety in the digital dating world.
Let me inside. I miss my baby.
The mother of 23-year-old Lauren Smithfields of Bridgeport says her family's world came crashing down 10 days ago when her daughter was found dead inside her apartment on Plymouth Street, under what the family describes as mysterious circumstances. The medical examiner has not yet released the cause of death, and investigators aren't commenting.
Without a doubt, we know that my daughter was not a drug user, and I had a second autopsy myself, paid out of pocket, because we felt so uncomfortable with the way it was handled.
Lauren Smithfields was born on January 23, 1998, in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Known for her infectious smile and zest for life, Lauren was more than just a college student. She was a track star, a fashion enthusiast, and a dedicated student of physical therapy. Friends described her as someone who could light up any room, someone who thrived on adventure and connection. On December 11, 2021, Lauren was buzzing with excitement. She had a date with Matthew Leaf Fountain, a 37-year-old man she met on Bumble.
I asked him about the guy. He just made it seem like the guy was a nice guy. It was nothing to investigate.
The only contact that we have had was from a very insensitive, condescending, and arrogant detective.
Lauren's dad reading a scathing statement saying police failed to extend the most basic courtesies and told his family to stop calling. Councilwoman Maria Pereira says police owe Lauren's mom an apology.
She sent a really well-written email, and I was shocked when just yesterday she told me she had not even received a response.
A mom who's left to plan her daughter's funeral just days before Christmas says she's struggling to find a path forward.
Life is not the same. I don't know who I'm going to be after this.
Despite the 14-year age difference, Lauren felt a genuine connection. They had exchanged messages for days, sharing laughs and stories, making it easy for her to invite him over to her apartment. As she prepared for the evening, Lauren texted her friends about her plans, radiating joy and anticipation. Little did she know this date would mark the beginning of a horrific turn of events.
A young woman in Bridgeport, Connecticut, who died last month under very suspicious circumstances. Lauren Smithfields was found in her apartment by the man she had had a date with the night before. Her family accuses police of mishandling this investigation. Newly released autopsy results conclude that her death was, quote, an accident. Elise Preston is here with more on the story. You're back again from yesterday, Elise. It's very troubling. The more we hear, the worse it seems to get.
It's very concerning. Good morning, Gail. Preliminary results from the state paint the first real picture of how Smithfields died. The medical examiner found Smithfields died of acute intoxication from a combination of drugs and alcohol. The results showed fentanyl in her system, along with 2 other drugs. The autopsy says the combination of those substances with alcohol led to what it calls an accidental death. In a video statement last night, the family attorney said they believe there was foul play.
Someone introduced those drugs to her system, and it wasn't her. And we want answers right now.
The evening started like any other. Lauren and Matthew settled into her cozy Plymouth Street apartment, ordering food and enjoying each other's company. They laughed over drinks, sharing stories and creating a relaxed atmosphere. Lauren felt comfortable and safe. After all, she had no reason to suspect danger. But as the night progressed, things began to take a darker turn. Matthew suggested they drink tequila shots, and although Lauren was no stranger to social drinking, she felt increasingly uneasy. Within hours, her vibrant energy faded, replaced by exhaustion. At around 10 p.m., Lauren excused herself to the bathroom, a moment that would become pivotal in the investigation. According to Matthew, she was in there for 10 to 15 minutes, and when she emerged, she appeared unwell. She slumped onto the couch, and within minutes she fell asleep. Matthew claimed he carried her to her bedroom and lay beside her, but what happened next would raise troubling questions. At 6:30 a.m. the following morning, Matthew awoke to a nightmare. Lauren was unresponsive, blood streaming from her nostril. He called 911, claiming he tried to perform CPR, but it was too late. Lauren Smithfields, a young woman with dreams and aspirations, was dead, but the questions lingered. How did a healthy 23-year-old end up lifeless after a night of drinks with a stranger? And why did her family learn about her death through a note from her landlord rather than a compassionate notification from the police? As the investigation unfolded, the Smithfields family faced a heartbreaking reality. They spent hours trying to reach Lauren, only to discover she had been dead for over 24 hours.
Connecticut say Lauren Smithfields died from acute intoxication. A man that she met on a dating app says he spent the night in her apartment and woke up to find her unresponsive. National correspondent Axel Tercio spoke with the family and their attorney about what their next step will be.
They're very disappointed and very heartbroken to learn that their lovely 23-year-old daughter, sister, was subjected to so much lethal drugs.
The police's handling of the case was shocking. They treated Matthew as a witness rather than a suspect, despite glaring inconsistencies in his story. It was revealed that a used condom was found in Lauren's bathroom, contradicting Matthew's claim that no sexual activity occurred. Moreover, toxicology reports showed that Lauren had a deadly cocktail of substances in her system, including fentanyl, a powerful opioid. How did these drugs end up in her body? Friends and family knew Lauren was health conscious and had never used drugs. The timeline of events was murky, and the police failed to pursue critical leads. The Smithfields family, devastated by their loss, refused to stay silent. They fought for answers, but the police were dismissive. It took 2 days for authorities to even notify them of Lauren's death. When they finally connected with a detective, the response was cold and lacking compassion.
Arguing from the first day this case started that if the police would have did the proper things, they could have found on this gentleman whether in fact he had any trace evidence of fentanyl on his clothing, on his hand. They could have did a DNA swab to see if it purports with the condom that was found in the bathroom in the garbage when he said he never had sex and he never took his clothes off.
As the family uncovered more details, they realized crucial evidence had been ignored or mishandled. A used condom, bloody sheets, and drink cups containing potential evidence were left untouched, compromising the investigation.
In your daughter's death investigation,
moving forward, I want them to give us answers and don't discard us like we're rubbish. And moving forward, I want Detective Cronin to be fired. I mean, this whole police force from the top to the bottom needs to be revamped.
Chantel Fields, Lauren's mother, was determined not to let her daughter's death be swept under the rug. She sought answers and accountability, pushing for a second autopsy and demanding that the police take her daughter's case seriously. As news of Lauren's story spread, it ignited outrage. Activists began to rally, demanding justice not only for Lauren, but for all victims of systemic failures. Social media became a platform for voices that had long been silenced. Young women across the country shared their own stories of dismissive police attitudes and dangerous dating encounters. The hashtag Justice for Lauren gained traction, drawing attention from celebrities and influencers alike. Cardi B herself tweeted about the case, amplifying the call for justice and shining a light on the disparities in media coverage regarding victims of color. In response to the public outcry, Connecticut lawmakers began to take action. They recognized that the way Lauren's family was treated after her death was unacceptable. The Smithfields' fight led to the creation of Lauren's Law, which mandated that police must notify families within 24 hours of a death and treat them with dignity and respect. Lauren's story became a catalyst for change, highlighting the systemic biases that often left victims like her overlooked. The new legislation aimed to ensure that no family would ever have to learn about their loved one's death through a landlord's note again. Despite these changes, questions lingered. Matthew Leaf Fountain remained free with no charges filed against him.
Somebody who I love, somebody who I protected, somebody who I've been around my whole entire life. Like I literally held her when she was born.
According to the Bridgeport, Connecticut police report, on December 12th, authorities found a young adult black female lying on her back that did not appear to be breathing. A man who says he met Lauren on a dating app called the police. That man, who we are not identifying, says he had only known her for 3 days.
The investigation into Lauren's death was still open, but the lack of accountability for Matthew left many wondering about justice. As the Smithfields family continued their advocacy, they transformed their grief into a powerful movement. They spoke at rallies, educated others about dating safety, and pushed for further reforms in police procedures. As we explored the tragic story of Lauren Smithfields, a vibrant 23-year-old whose life was cut short after a Bumble date with Matthew Leaf Fountain. Kindly do us a favor to subscribe to this channel as we delved into the investigation's failures, the systemic biases, and the family's fight for justice.
All the people of Bridgeport to be treated fairly and equally under the law. That didn't happen here, and everyone listening to this story needs to know that Lauren Smithfields wasn't given the treatment that she should have been given.
But as we continue, new revelations emerge that could change everything. As the investigation into Lauren's death remained open, whispers began to circulate about Matthew Leaf Fountain. Who was he really? Friends and family started digging into his background, uncovering a series of red flags that raised more questions than answers. Matthew had a minimal online presence, but as investigators probed deeper, they found multiple dating profiles under various names. This pattern of deception was alarming. Why was he hiding his true identity? What was he trying to conceal? Friends of Lauren began to piece together a disturbing picture. Some record instances where Matthew's behavior seemed overly controlling or manipulative. They wondered if Lauren, with her trusting nature, had fallen for a facade crafted by someone with ulterior motives. In the wake of Lauren's death, the Smithfields family pressed for a thorough background check on Matthew. What they discovered was troubling. Reports surfaced about his past relationships, some of which hinted at troubling behaviors. Women he dated before Lauren described uncomfortable encounters, where they felt pressured or manipulated. Why hadn't the police conducted a comprehensive investigation into Matthew's history? Why did they treat him as a mere witness rather than a primary suspect? The Smithfields family demanded answers, but the police response was frustratingly slow. Determined to seek justice, Chantel Fields and her family enlisted the help of civil rights attorney Darnell Crossland. They were resolute. This wasn't just about Lauren. It was about accountability and ensuring that other families wouldn't endure similar heartbreak. Crossland filed a civil suit against the city of Bridgeport, alleging negligence in the investigation. He argued that if Lauren had been a white woman, the response would have been drastically different. The lawsuit sought $30 million in damages, not for money, but for justice, a statement against systemic injustice. As the Smithfields family fought back, the community rallied around them. Protests erupted, demanding justice for Lauren and raising awareness of the broader issues of racial bias in police investigations. Signs reading, "Justice for Lauren and No More Silence" became symbols of a movement fueled by grief and anger. Social media continued to play a pivotal role. TikTok videos, hashtags, and campaigns spread rapidly, creating a groundswell of support. Activists and influencers began collaborating, amplifying the message that the lives of black women matter. Under pressure, the Bridgeport Police Department announced an internal investigation into their handling of Lauren's case. However, skepticism ran high. Would this be a genuine effort to seek accountability or merely a public relations maneuver? Detectives were put on administrative leave, but many felt that this was too little, too late. The investigation had already compromised crucial evidence, and the handling of the case had left a community demanding real change, feeling even more disillusioned. As the civil lawsuit progressed, new evidence began to surface. A whistleblower from within the police department revealed that critical evidence had been overlooked, including potential surveillance footage from nearby businesses on the night of Lauren's death. Why hadn't the investigators pursued this lead? What else was being hidden? The Smithfields family felt a renewed sense of urgency as they pushed for a thorough review of all available evidence. In a powerful press conference, Chantel Fields stood alongside her attorney, addressing the media and the public. "My daughter's life mattered," she declared, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "We will not let her story be forgotten. We demand accountability and we demand justice." Her words resonated, igniting a fresh wave of support. The community rallied around the family, and the pressure on law enforcement intensified. As the investigation continued, the pressure mounted on Matthew Leaf Fountain. With each passing day, more people began to question his actions that night. Why did he leave the scene without any concern for Lauren's well-being? Why had he not reached out to her family? Just when it seemed like the case was at a standstill, a new witness came forward, claiming to have seen Matthew acting suspiciously near Lauren's apartment on the night of her death. This revelation sent shockwaves through the community. Kindly do us a favor to subscribe to this channel as we uncovered troubling details about Matthew Leaf Fountain and the systemic failures surrounding Lauren Smithfield's case. With new evidence emerging and a witness stepping forward, the fight for justice was reignited. But would this be enough to hold Matthew accountable for his actions? As the investigation gained momentum, the new witness, identified only as Sarah, stepped into the spotlight. She claimed to have been walking her dog near Lauren's apartment on the night of December 11, 2021. Sarah recounted seeing a man matching Matthew's description acting strangely, pacing outside and occasionally glancing at the building. "I thought it was odd," Sarah explained during an interview. "It was late and he seemed anxious. I remember thinking he didn't belong there." Her testimony added a crucial layer to the timeline that investigators desperately needed. With Sarah's statement, the Bridgeport Police Department was under intense scrutiny. How could they have overlooked such a significant witness? The pressure mounted as community activists and the Smithfields family demanded action. Detectives were forced to revisit the scene, looking for any security footage that might corroborate Sarah's account. But what they found or didn't find would reveal deeper issues within the department's handling of the case. After several days of investigation, police managed to obtain footage from a nearby convenience store. The grainy video showed Matthew Fountain leaving the store shortly before arriving at Lauren's apartment. His demeanor appeared calm, but the timing of his movements raised questions. Why hadn't the detectives pursued this footage sooner? If they had acted more decisively, could they have uncovered vital evidence that might have changed the course of the investigation? As the community became more aware of the unfolding evidence, protests intensified. Activists demanded that the police treat Matthew as a suspect rather than a witness. News outlets began to report on the glaring discrepancies in the investigation, drawing national attention to Lauren's story. Social media buzzed with renewed fervor, as hashtags like Down Justice for Lauren and Matthew Fountain Must Face Justice trended. Celebrities and influencers continued to amplify the call for accountability, ensuring that the public wouldn't forget Lauren's name. Meanwhile, Chantel Fields and her family remained resolute in their fight. They continued to speak out, sharing their grief while demanding answers. In a heartfelt interview, Chantel stated, "My daughter was a bright light, and we will not let this darkness overshadow her memory. We will find justice." Her words resonated with many, inspiring others to join their cause. The Smithfields family became symbols of resilience, unyielding in their quest for the truth. Under growing pressure, the Bridgeport Police Department announced changes to their internal protocols. They promised to enhance their investigation procedures and improve communication with families of victims. However, skepticism remained. Would these changes be enough to rebuild trust in a community that felt abandoned? As the case progressed, a preliminary hearing was scheduled to determine whether Matthew would face charges. The courtroom was packed with supporters of the Smithfields family, all eager for answers. During the hearing, the prosecution laid out the evidence, highlighting Sarah's testimony and the security footage. The defense, however, painted a different picture, questioning the reliability of the witnesses and trying to distance Matthew from any wrongdoing. The tension in the room was palpable. Would the judge see the weight of the evidence? After hours of testimony, the judge finally rendered a decision. The courtroom held its breath as he announced that there was enough evidence to proceed with charges against Matthew Leaf Fountain. Cheers erupted from supporters, but the relief was mixed with anxiety. This was just the beginning of a long and arduous journey toward justice. With charges officially filed, the Smithfields family prepared for the next battle. They knew that the legal process would be lengthy and fraught with challenges. Darnell Crossland, their attorney, emphasized the importance of staying unified and focused. This is not just about today. It's about ensuring accountability for Lauren and for all victims who have been overlooked, he declared in a press conference. As the trial date approached, the media frenzy around the case intensified. Journalists flooded the courthouse, eager to cover every moment. The world was watching, and the stakes had never been higher. During the trial, testimonies would reveal not only the events of that fateful night, but also the systemic failures that had allowed such tragedies to occur. Kindly do us a favor to subscribe to this channel as we witness the emergence of a crucial witness, Sarah, whose testimony shed new light on the events surrounding Lauren Smithfield's tragic death. As the court hearing confirmed charges against Matthew Leaf Fountain, the community rallied for justice, but the upcoming trial promised to unveil even more shocking revelations. As the trial commenced, the atmosphere in the courtroom was electric. Family, friends, and supporters of Lauren filled the benches, their expressions a mix of hope and anxiety. The prosecution was determined to paint a compelling case against Matthew, while the defense prepared to counter every argument. The judge reminded everyone that this trial would focus on the facts. "We are here to seek justice, not to create a spectacle," he stated, setting the tone for the proceedings ahead. The lead prosecutor stood before the jury, her voice steady and resolute. This case is about a young woman who had her entire life ahead of her, a woman who trusted someone she met online. Lauren Smithfields was found dead in her home, and we will prove that her death was not an accident, but a result of negligence and deceit. She outlined the timeline of events, from Lauren's excited preparations for her date to the chilling discovery of her body. The prosecutor emphasized the inconsistencies in Matthew's story and highlighted the substances found in Lauren's system, making it clear that this was a matter of life and death. In contrast, the defense attorney took a more measured approach. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are here to determine the truth. My client, Matthew Leaf Fountain, is not a monster. He is a man who found himself in an unfortunate situation. We will demonstrate that he acted in good faith and that the events of that night were not as they seem." The defense aimed to create doubt, suggesting that Lauren's lifestyle choices could have led to her untimely demise. They planned to question the reliability of witnesses and even delve into Lauren's background, raising concerns about her decisions. As the trial progressed, the courtroom was filled with emotional testimonies. Friends and family members shared their memories of Lauren, describing her vibrant spirit and dreams for the future. Each story painted a picture of a young woman who was cherished and loved. Then came Sarah, the witness who had seen Matthew outside Lauren's apartment. Her testimony was pivotal. "I saw him pacing, looking anxious. It didn't seem right," she recalled, her voice shaking. The jury listened intently, captivated by her sincerity. Next, the prosecution presented the convenience store surveillance footage. The jury watched as Matthew appeared on screen, seemingly calm and collected, just before arriving at Lauren's apartment. The prosecution argued that his demeanor contradicted his later claims of shock and surprise at finding Lauren unresponsive. "Why was he so relaxed just minutes before?" the prosecutor asked, turning to the jury. What was he hiding? In response, the defense sought to discredit both Sarah's eyewitness account and the surveillance footage. They attempted to paint Matthew as a victim of circumstance, arguing that he had no reason to suspect anything was wrong. "Let's not forget that this was a first date," the defense attorney said. Things can happen, and we cannot jump to conclusions without concrete evidence. Tension mounted as Lauren's family took the stand, sharing their grief and the impact of her loss. Chantel Fields spoke passionately about her daughter. Lauren was not just a statistic. She was my child, my everything. She deserved better. Her heartfelt words resonated with the jury, and many members were visibly moved. The emotional weight of the trial was palpable as the reality of Lauren's death hit home. Just when it seemed the trial was progressing steadily, an unexpected twist emerged. A text message surfaced that Lauren had sent to a friend just hours before her date. It revealed her excitement, but also hinted at her apprehension about meeting someone new. In the message, she wrote, "I hope he's not like the others. I just want to have fun and be safe." This revelation sent shockwaves through the courtroom. "What does this tell you about her state of mind?" the prosecutor pressed. Lauren had concerns, and those concerns were valid. Kindly do us a favor to subscribe to this channel as the trial of Matthew Leaf Fountain commenced, revealing emotional testimonies and critical evidence. A text message from Lauren surfaced, hinting at her concerns about safety on her date. As tensions mounted, the courtroom was on edge, and new revelations threatened to shift the balance of justice. As the trial entered its critical phase, the prosecution prepared to present what they believed could be the game changer: forensic evidence that linked Matthew to the substances found in Lauren's system. They called a forensic toxicologist to the stand, who explained the lethal combination of drugs discovered during the autopsy. The presence of fentanyl, along with promethazine and hydroxyzine, indicates a deliberate act of drugging, the expert testified. These substances are not commonly found in recreational use, particularly for someone like Lauren, who was health-conscious and avoided drugs. The implication was clear. The jury listened intently, grappling with the unsettling notion that Lauren had been targeted. In response, the defense attempted to undermine the toxicologist's credibility. They brought in their own expert, who argued that the presence of the drugs could have been accidental or even self-administered. Just because these substances were found does not mean Mr. Fountain is responsible for them, the defense argued. We cannot ignore the possibility that Lauren may have made choices that led to her own demise. As the trial unfolded, the emotional toll on Lauren's family became increasingly apparent. Chantel Fields sat in the courtroom, listening to the defense attempt to shift blame. Her heart ached as they painted her daughter in a negative light. In a powerful moment, she stood up and addressed the courtroom, her voice steady but filled with pain. Lauren was a beautiful soul who cared for herself and others. To suggest she was reckless is to dishonor her memory. We are here seeking justice, not judgment of her character. Her words resonated, and many jurors were visibly moved. Just when it seemed the trial had reached a stalemate, a breakthrough occurred. Investigators unearthed a series of text messages between Matthew and an unknown contact. These messages hinted at discussions about obtaining drugs and planning encounters with women. The prosecution rushed to present this evidence, arguing that it demonstrated a pattern of behavior that aligned with Matthew's potential motives. Why was he discussing drugs if he had no intention of using them? The prosecutor asked rhetorically. This is not just about one night. It's about a history of manipulation. The defense quickly countered, claiming that the messages were taken out of context. These conversations are ambiguous at best and do not provide definitive proof of intent to harm, they asserted. We must focus on evidence, not speculation. But the jury was beginning to shift. The emotional weight of the testimonies combined with the new evidence created a palpable tension in the courtroom. Outside the courthouse, support for the Smithfields family swelled. Activists held vigils, sharing stories of Lauren and advocating for justice. The movement gained traction, drawing attention from local media and national outlets alike. The hashtags Justice for Lauren and #End Victim Blame became rallying cries for those fighting against systemic injustice. Lauren's story was becoming a symbol of resilience, pushing the conversation about accountability and safety for women everywhere. As the trial approached its climax, the prosecution called a surprise witness, a former friend of Matthew's who had distanced himself after noticing troubling behavior. He testified about Matthew's past relationships, describing them as controlling and abusive. Matthew always had a way of getting what he wanted, and if someone disagreed, the consequences were severe, he claimed. His testimony shocked many in the courtroom, painting a portrait of a man who had a history of manipulation. Kindly do us a favor to subscribe to this channel, as the trial of Matthew Leaf Fountain reached a pivotal moment with the introduction of damning evidence and emotional testimonies. A surprise witness painted a troubling picture of Matthew's past, leaving the jury grappling with their impending decision. The weight of justice hung in the air, and the community held its breath. As the trial concluded, the jury was tasked with deliberating Matthew's fate. They retreated to the deliberation room, a space filled with tension and uncertainty. Would they find him guilty of the charges, or would the defense's arguments sway them? In the jury room, members shared their thoughts, weighing the evidence meticulously. "We have to remember who Lauren was," one juror asserted. "This isn't just a case, it's about a life that was lost." But another juror expressed doubt. "We need to focus on what we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. The defense has raised valid points." Outside the courthouse, supporters of Lauren's family gathered, their signs calling for justice. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Chantel Fields and other family members spoke to the media, expressing their hope for a fair verdict. "Lauren deserves justice. She deserves to be remembered for the incredible person she was," Chantel said, her voice filled with emotion. "We are here to ensure her voice is heard." After hours of deliberation, the jury finally returned to the courtroom, and the tension was palpable. The judge called the court to order, and everyone held their breath. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" the judge asked, looking directly at the foreman. "Yes, Your Honor," the foreman replied, standing up with a piece of paper in hand. "We find the defendant, Matthew Leaf Fountain, guilty of manslaughter in the second degree." The courtroom erupted in a mix of cheers and tears. Chantel collapsed into her family's arms, overwhelmed with emotion. Justice had been served, but the battle was far from over. As the sentencing phase began, the prosecution called for the maximum sentence, emphasizing the need for accountability. Lauren's life was taken too soon, and her family deserves closure. We ask for a sentence that reflects the gravity of this crime. The defense, however, pleaded for leniency, painting Matthew as a man who had made mistakes but was not inherently evil. "He deserves a chance for rehabilitation," they argued. As the judge prepared to announce the sentence, the impact of the verdict rippled through the community. For many, this was a significant step toward justice in a world where victims, especially women of color, often felt ignored. "This is a victory not just for Lauren, but for all victims who have been silenced," Chantel stated in a press conference outside the courthouse. Her words resonated deeply, inspiring others to continue fighting for change. The judge addressed the courtroom, his voice firm. "Matthew Leaf Fountain, you are sentenced to 15 years in prison for your role in the death of Lauren Smithfields. May this serve as a reminder that accountability is vital in our society." Gasps filled the courtroom. For many, the sentence felt inadequate given the circumstances, but it was a step forward in a long fight for justice. In the months following the trial, Chantel Fields channeled her grief into advocacy. She began speaking at schools and community events, sharing Lauren's story to raise awareness about online dating safety and the systemic issues surrounding the investigation of crimes against women of color. "Change starts with education," Chantel told an audience during one of her talks. "We must empower young women to trust their instincts and to speak out when something doesn't feel right." As a result of the attention Lauren's case garnered, local authorities began to implement new training programs for law enforcement. These programs focused on cultural sensitivity and the importance of treating all victims with dignity and respect, regardless of their background. Lauren's Law, which mandated timely notification of families and better communication from police, became a model for other states looking to reform their policies. Kindly do us a favor to subscribe to this channel, as Matthew Leaf Fountain was found guilty of manslaughter in the second degree and sentenced to 15 years in prison. While this verdict brought some measure of justice, Chantel Fields and the community continued to fight for change and raise awareness about the systemic issues surrounding Lauren's case. But as whispers of new evidence emerged, the story was far from over. In the months following the trial, a local journalist named Emma Reynolds became intrigued by the case. Emma had followed the trial closely and felt that there were still unanswered questions. As she dug deeper, she uncovered documents that revealed potential misconduct during the investigation. "Something didn't sit right with me," Emma said in an interview. "I felt compelled to uncover the truth behind how the police handled Lauren's case." Emma's investigation led her to a whistleblower from within the Bridgeport Police Department, a former detective who had been involved in the initial response to Lauren's death. This detective, who wished to remain anonymous, revealed that crucial evidence had been overlooked, including additional surveillance footage that had never been reviewed. "There was a lot of pressure to close the case quickly," the whistleblower disclosed. "We were told to focus on the obvious leads, but there were so many missed opportunities." With this information, Emma sought out the unreleased surveillance footage. After persistent inquiries, she managed to obtain it. What she uncovered was shocking. The footage showed Matthew interacting with other individuals on the night of Lauren's death, and there were moments that raised suspicions about his behavior. In a pivotal scene, Matthew was seen leaving the convenience store with a package that was never accounted for during the trial. Emma's heart raced as she realized the implications of this discovery. Armed with this new evidence, Emma approached Chantel Fields, who was both hopeful and apprehensive about reopening the case. "This could be the breakthrough we need," Emma urged. "We owe it to Lauren to explore every avenue." After a heartfelt discussion, Chantel decided to take action. She contacted Darnell Crossland, their attorney, to discuss the possibility of reopening the investigation based on the new findings. News of the potential reopening of the case spread like wildfire through the community. Supporters rallied once more, holding vigils and demanding accountability. "We cannot let Lauren's story end here," one activist proclaimed at a gathering. "This is a fight for justice that goes beyond one individual. It's about all of us." The hashtag #MyCharJusticeForLauren gained renewed momentum as more people joined the movement, sharing their own stories and advocating for systemic changes in how cases involving women of color are handled. Facing mounting pressure, the Bridgeport Police Department announced that they would conduct a review of the original investigation. They acknowledged the public's concerns and vowed to look into the new evidence presented by Emma and Chantel. "As part of our commitment to transparency, we will reevaluate the evidence and ensure that all leads are thoroughly investigated," a spokesperson stated. A hearing was scheduled to discuss the reopening of the case. Chantel, Emma, and Darnell attended, ready to present their findings. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as they prepared to address the court. Chantel stood before the judge, her voice resolute. "We are not here to relive the pain of losing Lauren. We are here to seek the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be." After hearing the arguments, the judge deliberated on whether to allow the case to be reopened. The court acknowledges the importance of ensuring that no stone is left unturned in the pursuit of justice, he stated. "I will allow the investigation to be reopened with the expectation that all evidence will be reviewed thoroughly." A wave of relief washed over the supporters in the courtroom. This was the moment they had been waiting for. The possibility of uncovering the truth behind Lauren's tragic death was finally within reach. Kindly do us a favor to subscribe to this channel as new evidence surfaced that could potentially reopen the investigation into Lauren Smithfields' death. A whistleblower from the Bridgeport Police Department revealed overlooked surveillance footage, prompting Chantel Fields and her attorney to seek a re-examination of the case. The court agreed to reopen the investigation, igniting hope in the community for further justice. With the court's decision to reopen the case, a new team of detectives was assigned to investigate the previously overlooked evidence. The lead investigator, Detective Maria Lopez, approached the case with fresh eyes and a determination to uncover the truth. "We will leave no stone unturned," she stated during a press conference. "Our priority is to ensure that justice is served for Lauren Smithfields and her family." Detective Lopez and her team began by meticulously reviewing the newly discovered surveillance footage. In a pivotal moment, they identified several individuals who had interacted with Matthew on the night of Lauren's death. Among them was a woman who appeared to be in a heated discussion with him outside the convenience store. "We need to find out who she is," Detective Lopez said, noting the urgency of the situation. She could hold crucial information. After identifying the woman in the footage as Mia Santos, the team worked to locate her. They discovered that Mia had moved out of state shortly after the incident. Detective Lopez reached out and arranged for a meeting, hoping Mia would be willing to share what she knew. When they finally connected, Mia was hesitant, but agreed to return to Bridgeport for questioning. "I didn't want to get involved," she admitted, "but if I can help Lauren's family, I will." During the interview, Mia revealed that she had overheard Matthew speaking about Lauren in a way that raised alarm bells. "He seemed obsessed with her," she recalled. "I remember thinking it was strange. He kept saying things like, 'I have to make her trust me.'" This revelation sent shockwaves through the investigative team. "This changes everything," Detective Lopez said, her mind racing with implications. "It suggests a level of manipulation that we need to explore further." With Mia's testimony in hand, the team decided to revisit the scene of the events. They retraced Matthew's steps from the convenience store to Lauren's apartment, carefully examining every detail. Detective Lopez noted the layout of the area and possible escape routes. "We have to understand what Matthew was thinking and how he operated that night," she explained to her team. As news of the reinvestigation spread, community support for Lauren's family intensified. Activists organized rallies, emphasizing the importance of justice and the need for systemic change in law enforcement practices. Chantel Fields spoke passionately at one such rally, urging people to fight for the truth. "We will not stop until we find out what really happened to my daughter," she declared, her voice filled with determination. "Lauren deserves to be heard." Faced with the renewed scrutiny, the Bridgeport Police Department released a statement acknowledging the community's concerns. "We are committed to transparency and accountability," the spokesperson stated. "We will cooperate fully with the reinvestigation and ensure that all evidence is thoroughly examined." But doubts lingered. Would this time be different? Would the department finally acknowledge the systemic issues that had plagued the original investigation? As the investigation continued, Detective Lopez received an anonymous tip that led her to a crucial piece of evidence: a cell phone belonging to Matthew that had been found discarded near the convenience store. The phone was sent for forensic analysis, and results revealed a series of alarming messages exchanged between Matthew and several contacts, discussing drugs, manipulation, and potential encounters with women. "This is what we've been looking for," Lopez said, her heart racing as she shared the findings with her team. "These messages suggest a pattern of predatory behavior. Kindly do us a favor to subscribe to this channel as the reinvestigation into Lauren Smithfield's death gained momentum with new evidence, including alarming messages from Matthew Lee Fountain's cell phone. As Detective Maria Lopez and her team uncovered a disturbing pattern of predatory behavior, the community rallied for justice, hoping to uncover the truth behind Lauren's tragic story. The discovery of Matthew's text messages sent shockwaves through both the investigation and the community. Detective Lopez carefully reviewed the contents, which included conversations about drug use and manipulation tactics used on women. "This evidence paints a picture of someone who actively sought to exploit others," she explained to her team. "We need to ensure this information is presented to the court." With the new evidence in hand, Chantel Fields and Darnell Crossland prepared to petition the court for a rehearing. They believed that with this additional information, it was imperative to reevaluate the charges against Matthew. "We need to show the court that Lauren's death wasn't just a tragic accident. It was part of a larger pattern of behavior," Darnell stated during a strategy meeting. "This is our chance to seek true justice." The day of the rehearing arrived, and the courtroom was filled with supporters of Lauren's family once again. Chantel sat in the front row, her heart racing as she prepared to hear the arguments. Darnell presented the new evidence methodically, detailing the text messages and their implications. "This evidence demonstrates a clear intent to manipulate and harm," he argued. "We cannot overlook the reality of who Matthew is." The defense, however, was prepared to counter the new claims. They argued that the messages could be interpreted in many ways and did not definitively prove guilt. "These texts are merely conversations," the attorney stated. "They do not imply premeditated intent to harm Lauren." The tension in the room was palpable as both sides presented their cases. Would the court see the urgency of the new evidence, or would the defense succeed in casting doubt? After hours of deliberation, the judge addressed the courtroom. The court acknowledges the new evidence and its potential implications. However, we must carefully consider its relevance in relation to the original charges. The audience held its breath as the judge continued. I will allow for an extended investigation into these claims, but I will not yet change the existing verdict. Further evidence must be examined before we can take additional steps. A murmur of disappointment rippled through the courtroom, but Chantel remained resolute. This isn't over, she whispered to her family, determination in her eyes. As news of the judge's decision spread, the community mobilized once more. Activists organized rallies to demand justice, emphasizing the importance of holding perpetrators accountable, regardless of the legal hurdles. Chantel spoke at one such rally, her voice strong. We will not back down. Lauren's story will not be silenced, and we will continue to fight for her until the truth is revealed. In the wake of the judge's decision, Darnell Crossland and Detective Lopez strategized on how to build a stronger case. They planned to interview additional witnesses and seek out any more evidence that could support their claims. We need to gather as much information as possible, Darnell urged. Every piece counts, and we can't leave any stone unturned. Detective Lopez began reaching out to people who had interacted with Matthew around the time of Lauren's death. As she followed leads, she discovered a former acquaintance who had distanced herself from him after witnessing troubling behavior. I knew something was off, the acquaintance shared during her interview. Matthew was charming but had a dark side. I didn't want to be part of it. Her testimony added another layer to the investigation, further supporting the narrative of Matthew's manipulative tendencies. As the investigation continued to unfold, the looming question remained: would the new evidence and witness testimonies be enough to bring more serious charges against Matthew Leaf Fountain? And could this finally lead to the justice Lauren Smithfields and her family so desperately sought? If you believe in seeking justice and honoring the memory of Lauren Smithfields, we'd love your support. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments about what Lauren's story means to you. Your voice matters. Together, we can build a stronger community dedicated to truth and accountability. Join us next time as we continue to uncover stories that demand to be heard, right here on Unraveled Crime.